As the waters of the Gulf of Oman, in the Middle East churn with hidden currents, amid the US-Iran standoff, and the Strait of Hormuz, this global energy artery remains poised to convulse at the sound of a single gunshot. Why did a report lacking a hull number, ship name, or even a specific departure time prompt Western defense media to swiftly secure coverage, prompting former naval officers to dissect satellite imagery frame by frame on television, and drawing countless eyes monitoring distant maritime movements to a stretch of sea previously patrolled only by routine escort fleets? Has that colossal warship, touted as the world's most capable maritime combat platform, truly cut through the Indian Ocean monsoon? Now quietly anchored at a deep blue coordinate less than a few hundred nautical miles from Iran's coastline, the news arrived without fanfare, even carrying a deliberate air of ambiguity. On February the 10th, a report on the Military Observer magazine website, citing multiple sources, outlined a task force led by a Type 055 destroyer, escorted by Type 052D destroyers, and bolstered by the Lugong-class maritime surveillance vessel, dubbed by Taiwanese media as a major power's strategic asset. With no official announcement and no confirmation during the Ministry of National Defense's routine press conference Q&A session, the current roster of China's Naval Escort Task Force in the Gulf of Aden still lists the 47th batch of vessels, the Baotou and Hong destroyers, carrying out their duties while exchanging telegrams of gratitude to the motherland's navy. Following the pattern of the past decade, the surface vessel combination heading toward the Arabian Sea has always been the familiar trio of one destroyer, one frigate, and one support ship, the Type 052D leading the way, the Type 054 providing escort, and the 903 quietly following behind for refueling and ammunition replenishment. The Type 055 destroyer that was reserved as the anchor vessel for deployments to the Hainan Island area, facing off against US-Philippine joint patrols. What business does it have near Iran? Yet it is precisely this deviation from convention that makes the denials hard to fully convince even themselves. Because on the same timeline, another certainty is already set in stone. Iranian state outlets like Fars news agency and Press TV have been signaling since late January that in mid to late February 2026, the navies of China, Russia, and Iran will conduct the Security Belt 2026 joint maritime exercise in the northern Indian Ocean, the Gulf of Oman, and near the Strait of Hormuz. This is not conjecture, but an annual institutionalized exercise dating back to 2019. Russian Security Council Secretary Sergei Shoigu, acting on Putin's direct orders, rushed to Beijing for closed-door talks that concluded within 24 hours before returning to Moscow, a compressed schedule that even skipped ceremonial handshakes. If the Chinese naval vessels dispatched to Iran for the exercise were merely the familiar escort ships that had recently repelled pirate boats in the Gulf of Aden, why would it require a figure of Shoigu's stature to make a special trip for coordination on the eve of the drills? Here lies the first logical inconsistency. The Aden Gulf Escort Task Force operates under a rotational deployment system among different naval fleets, tasked with counter-piracy and merchant vessel protection, its firepower configured for low-intensity threats. While the security belt exercises nominally include non-traditional security subjects like search and rescue and counter-terrorism, what exactly is the Strait of Hormuz? It lies directly across from Bahrain, headquarters of the U.S. Fifth Fleet. It is the sensitive waterway through which the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group may transit at any moment. It is the standoff zone, where Iranian Revolutionary Guard speedboats and U.S. cruisers lock eyes. In such a central theater, if the Chinese Navy merely dispatched a hastily deployed Type 052D or Type 054 destroyer, currently on escort duty for a fleeting cameo, it would not only fail to match the exercise's strategic caliber, but also severely disconnect from the political coordination level embodied by Shoigu's special visit to China. The presence of the Type 055 destroyer at this geopolitical pivot point rests on another, more solid logical foundation, its own recently articulated mission statement. On February the 3rd, CCTV's National Defense and Military Channel focused its lens on the 108 Xianyang. When the colonel officer faced the microphone, he offered no bureaucratic vagueness. Our combat mission essentially boils down to two key tasks. Additionally, by demonstrating our capabilities, we ensure the other side understands we possess the capacity to protect and uphold free navigation and trade. This on-the-record statement was repeatedly cited by military enthusiasts in the days that followed, as it offered rare clarity. The deployment of large naval surface vessels serves not only traditional warfare purposes, but also functions as a deterrent declaration through sheer presence. This statement has already been validated in real combat operations near Huainan Island in the South China Sea. In late January, when the US and Philippines jointly designated an exercise zone, the Xianyang aircraft carrier deployed J-16D fighters and H-6K bombers to the area. US media subsequently published lengthy articles noting how a single warship had redefined the security perimeter by hundreds of nautical miles. This raises a question: if the Xianyang can safeguard freedom of navigation and trade in the South China Sea, why can't it perform the same role in the Persian Gulf, the vital waterway for 20% of global oil trade? Those skeptical of the reports often cite one reason: the Chinese Navy has never deployed 10,000-ton destroyers to the Middle East outside of its escort missions in the Gulf of Aden, and established practices are not easily broken, but conventions exist to adapt to strategic demands. And by early 2026, the intensity of global energy corridor competition had already outgrown the confines of old norms. Following the inauguration of Trump's second administration, the rhetoric of maximum pressure on Iran sharply escalated. Details of the THAAD system deployment at the U.S. military base in Jordan were even captured in clear images by Chinese commercial satellites and circulated on social media. Former Taiwanese Navy Captain Liu Lixi stated bluntly on a program that if the Type 055 fleet truly appeared off Iran's coast, its core mission would not be exchanging missiles with U.S. warships. Instead, it would deter U.S. immediate action through reconnaissance, buying Iran more time. This asymmetric role, spearheaded by surveillance capabilities and information support, aligns precisely with the functions of the Laoguang-class reconnaissance vessel. This 30,000-ton special-purpose ship, described as having a larger antenna array and integrated transmission capabilities, transmits collected electromagnetic signals and battlefield intelligence via data links. This enables Iran to gain comprehensive knowledge of the distribution of U.S. air defense and missile defense positions. This isn't conventional combat participation. It represents the forward deployment of the PLA's integrated reconnaissance and early warning capabilities embedded within an ally's defense chain. It is precisely this embedding that strikes a nerve with certain powers. Over the past years, external speculation about whether China would supply Iran with HQ-9B air defense missiles or share anti-ship ballistic missile technology remained purely conjectural. The combination of the Type 055 destroyer, Type 052D frigate, and the Laoguang-1 reconnaissance ship signifies the deployment of a complete mobile sea-based reconnaissance strike guidance chain. While not engaging in direct combat, it grants Iran near real-time transparency into the movements of U.S. naval vessels within hundreds of nautical miles, on both sides of the Strait of Hormuz. This form of soft kill is far more difficult to counter than a few missiles arriving at a port, and is also easier to deny. If this integrated strategy is indeed unfolding at Iran's doorstep, then the question arises: the omitted subject in that statement, is it purely an anonymous media source, or monitoring agencies that have detected electromagnetic anomalies through technical means yet find it inconvenient to publicly acknowledge? Of course, all inferences must return to that suspended premise: official silence neither constitutes denial nor confirmation. From the Ministry of National Defense to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, no authoritative body has yet confirmed or refuted this report. Following standard practice for China's overseas military operations, information about fleet deployments is typically disclosed indirectly days after departure, such as through announcements of successful strait transits, while escort missions often remain unconfirmed until merchant vessels send thank you telegrams upon completion. For vessels currently underway, or already positioned at designated stations, secrecy is an inherent disciplinary requirement. Therefore, any definitive assertion at this moment, whether claiming arrival or dismissing it as rumor, lacks rigor. One thing remains certain: should the timeline advance to late February, when Chinese, Russian, and Iranian vessels form a review formation in the Gulf of Oman, and if the footage reveals a gray colossus, bearing 112 vertical launch cells, and a towering integrated radio frequency mast, then that February the 10th report, devoid of whole number or name, will be proven an accurate prediction rather than baseless conjecture.